A normal Friday night had come to an end in the city of Christchurch, and residents lay tucked away in their beds awaiting a fine spring weekend. What nobody knew was that a disaster was brewing, a hellish monster laying in wait right beneath their feet. Not one person knew that early Saturday morning, in a matter of seconds, lives would be changed forever.
At 4:35 or whenever it was on Saturday morning, I woke up to my bed shaking.
You could hear like this rumbling noise coming from afar, and I wasn't sure exactly what it was.
I had no idea what was happening. I thought we were being bombed.
My flatmates came into my room and they were like, "Holly, get out of bed," and we all huddled together under the door.
And there were just alarms everywhere.
We looked outside the window and the building next to us was crumbling down.
Once it was over, I got out of bed, I made sure that my flatmate was okay. He was standing in the doorway.
I was wide awake after that, obviously, and Mum pretty much just told me to stop complaining and go back to bed.
I guess it was a bit of a surprise because I didn't really expect Christchurch to have earthquake.
We didn't know if it was safer to stay or to get out of the building.
My heart was pounding and everyone got up and they were just like, you know, what was that, and you know, sort of pulled the flat together at that stage.
The earthquake's epicentre was 40 kilometres from the centre of Christchurch, near the town of Darfield, but anyone in Canterbury would have been forgiven for thinking it was right under their feet. By 7 a.m. Saturday, 3/4 of the city was without power, most buildings without running water, and those with water being advised to boil it. By sundown, the central business district was in lockdown.
About 20 or 30 kilometres west of Christchurch.
So my family's house is quite a bit damaged, and they were a little bit worried because they weren't sure if it was structural damage or just exterior damage. But they're in the Selwyn district, so they couldn't really actually leave because there wasn't an evacuation point for a while. Also with the aftershocks, they're kind of almost worse because it's just causing even more damage.
Thank God there was no destruction, you know, any cracks in the building or whatnot.
The house across the road, it was some like apartment thing, had like this massive, like it almost separated and there was like this massive hole in the roof, and pretty much 2 days later there were cranes and trucks just knocking it over.
So we were boiling all of our water and putting it into containers and putting it in the fridge. We didn't want to risk having to use water that could be contaminated.
We went back in to grab some stuff and we had policemen yelling at us to get out, and we weren't allowed back into our flat for about a week.
The first thing I did within like a couple of minutes of the quake is I rung Mum.
My parents were ringing, you know, most hours just to get updates and things.
Obviously Mum and Dad weren't here and that was pretty hard. It's probably the first sort of natural disaster to happen where I haven't been with Mum and Dad. And it was sort of a bit of a learning curve because back then, you know, Mum would have the emergency kit and all that sort of stuff, but here we didn't. You know, students don't really have... We don't even have a torch in this flat. And that was quite hard to deal with, but I mean, it's just a big learning curve really. It's helped me as a person sort of take more precautions and prepare myself better for more future, you know, natural disasters to come around.
With crisis comes community, and the people of Christchurch have seen proof of this in the wake of the disaster. Students from across the region have banded together not only to support one another away from their families, but to provide help to those less fortunate than themselves. Many of these students are originally from outside of Canterbury and have only been resident in the city for less than a year, yet they have formed a pseudo-army to shovel silt, help pack houses away, and distribute civil defence information flyers to the citizens who need help the most. Over 1,000 tertiary students have demonstrated how important it is for communities to work together in times of need, and how crucial this is in sustaining our future.
I've seen people come together as a community, and that's the best thing about it.
The students with Facebook making a group and then going out in their own time, like their time off, because they didn't have uni and stuff, to clean up like strangers' homes.
You've met your neighbours because you've wanted to check that everyone is safe.
It's amazing how calm and selfless people have been, you know, despite what's going on here.
4th of September 2010, 4:35 a.m. 40 seconds of shaking that measured 7.1 on the Richter scale and devastated a city. But was it a horrific disaster or a lucky escape?